It's Friday, Feedback Friday, the feedbackiest day of the week. It's Feedback Friday, and I am very caffeinated this Feedback Friday. You don't need to see my game notes. Yes, that was Song of Sparkle Muffin notes. Don't look. But yeah, this was a really good week in terms of response to content. I'm very, very pleased. And this is not an ego thing. This is a yay, something productive. We seem to collectively be on to something thing. So good work, everybody. Yes, I do see these things as a collective effort. The back and forth, the constant work. It's really good. I really appreciate it. If you want to support this work, help support this channel, become a monthly patron, patreon.com/Leanna K, or buy a one-time Leanna Care session for someone who can use it but can't afford it, coffee.com/Leanna K. Somebody was kind enough to donate a session for the person I mentioned earlier in the week. So thank you so very much for that person who will remain anonymous. Okay, we're going to bounce around a bit with the feedback because one comment on like Wellness Wednesday tied into a comment from Manly Monday because they were both about shame, right? And these two comments juxtaposed nicely because they were sort of dealing with the idea of sex segregated spaces and a feeling of security, but they came at it from two completely different places. And I had to sit because I recognized logically that they were talking about the same thing. But the first comment really personally triggered me and I had to scrape myself off the ceiling. And the other one didn't. And I had to figure out why. And I did figure out why. So I'm going to read one comment, tell you why it personally triggered me. And this is not to say I think the comment is bad. This is me saying I had an emotional reaction to the comment. Not the same thing, right, Cthulhu? Right. Cthulhu's guarding the cat nail clippers because Midna speared me earlier. You may have seen Midna on Twitch this week while we are playing Stray. All right. So the first comment. Again, shame was originally designed as a corrective mechanic. You're not supposed to wallow in shame as so many people do. You're supposed to move out of that place into someplace more healthy. That was what I was trying to do with guilt and shame. Like I said, potato. This is why gendered spaces, the old gentlemen's clubs and knitting circles, were invented in the first place. They were places where people could learn the rules if they failed to learn them in childhood. The feminist left wanted to destroy, that's air quotes in the actual comment, these places because it was a haven of cronyism, but it was also a place of correction for men. You'll hear the waver in my voice. Now we have a society where there are very few male spaces and there is no place where unhealthy men can get better. Angry young boys need a space away from women where they can receive correction. And those places have been destroyed in the name of equality. Welcome to a world where men can't get healthy, where young men are taught their behavior by radio shock jocks, and attending college requires a barrage of feminists attacking men for the behavior of other men. The problem isn't shame, it's social sickness. And you may have noticed every time the word correction came up in that comment, I was like, right. I am one of these people who my bad experiences of the mental health system were all about correcting me instead of helping me get healthier. To me, normalization did not result in better mental health. So this model that the guy is that works for a lot of people didn't work for me. And I had a very, very strong reaction to it. And I think it's important to present a mosaic of perspectives because of that. Because this other comment, and the original comment seems to be from a man based on inference. But this other comment is from a trans woman. So I'm just saying that because context, it's going to become clear where this matters. Okay. Wow, this one went deep. I'm that data point that doesn't really make any sense. I grew up with a strong male, again, quotes in the comment, identity, even though I resented it and wound up transitioning later in life. Along the way, I got a chance to be in some of the most masculine spaces you can find, the U.S. Army, specifically an artillery unit, which is second only to infantry. In my unit, there were some hyper-masculine people. The really interesting thing was when we had a KIA in our battalion, emotions were raw and they were on full display. We had lost one of our own and the grief was allowed to flow, and no one batted an eyelash. In talking to some of my friends from those days, I've been able to figure out that emotions for men can flow and be displayed in genuine ways, so long as it happens in a context that's appropriate to them. After tense times, I'd hear guys telling each other that they love each other and voicing support for them as they would fight their own inner demons. My takeaway from all of that is that if men feel secure in their environment, particularly from subversion or betrayal, they will display emotions. The amount of emotion is directly related to the amount of trust they feel within the group. The flip side to those experiences is the shame component. I've seen shame used to keep men adhering to a certain orthodoxy where the purported leader is not secure in himself. I've never, not once in 45 years, seen a man who is secure in himself use shame as a weapon. I've seen it wielded mercilessly by those who are not secure in themselves or positioned to cow other men. As I exited manhood, I see many of the same sorts of tactics from women. My data, however, is not as deep as it has been for men. And I will back that as someone who's moved in both, exclusively female spaces and then male dominated spaces, or spaces where I was the only woman. See, I associate those female spaces with correction. And I hate them. I hate them with a passion. If you want to freak me out, say the words bridal shower, pampered chef party, or Tupperware party, right? Those are wretched hives of scum and villainy up there with the Mos Eisley Cantina. And it is that lack of security from subversion or betrayal. I am very on my guard in those environments because of some terrible experiences where I thought, heaven forbid, I could just be myself. And it's, oh, what do you do for a living? Instant stank face. It's gotten to the point where it's like, I'm a content creator. Oh, what content? YouTube. I try to avoid saying what, because it's disgust. It's, they cannot, I was like, fuck it, I want out. I want to go back to my boy spaces, okay? Not because I'm not an anomaly there, not because it doesn't get uncomfortable there, but I do not get the stank face there. And so I feel less likely, I know I am personally more honed to how a woman will screw me over. It's a different sort of thing. I'm a bit better at spotting when a guy might be pulling a fast one, but female spaces are just there's entire books written on relational aggression, and it is true. It is that confidence that I also do not like grassroots movements for the same reason that when there is someone in charge, you can read the room and figure out if this is somewhere you want to stay or somewhere you don't. When there is no one in charge, there is no institutional personality, if you will. There's no one going, we do that here, we don't do that here, right? And so what ends up happening is the community with, a varying degree of speed gets hijacked by the biggest narcissist or cabal of narcissists. And then you've got exactly that scenario where insecure people are using shame to control people. It is, and I do think that it's interesting, right? Because this is somebody who is the unique perspective of being in both spaces, that they monogendered spaces serve a very important purpose in a lot of people's lives. If you are gender conforming, if you're not, it fucking sucks. And so we need, I think there's a space for male spaces, or men's spaces, we'll say. Well, you know what? I think there's a space for male spaces and men's spaces, right? And then there's a space for women's spaces and then female spaces. And then there's the rest of us who prefer to balance out the worst habits of all of those with everybody who's cool. We're gonna set the boundary based on other things, because just because it's all women or just because it's all men does not mean that otherwise anybody has anything in common. And I think that's really important to keep in mind. I find those incredibly artificial for me, but interesting, right? And the punitive correction I received in those female spaces was what drove me away from them. And I think I'm better for it, because I learn about the experiences of other people, right? And it allows me to look past that stuff and sort of go, okay, we've got a lot of shame going on here. And I do really think that whatever movement, whatever ideology you want to connect to, if there isn't structure within an organization, it is going to get taken over by narcissists who then hijack whatever it is, right? Be it a church, be it whether a feminist group, an LGBTQ plus group, a trans rights group, it doesn't matter what it is, a political party. If narcissists are allowed to run unchecked, it is going to be profoundly unhealthy, and they are going to use coercive shame tactics to just control people, because that's what they do, right? And the coat of paint is really less important for that formula than the lack of leadership, lack of secure leadership, lack of confident leadership, and the presence of narcissists, right? And that's why I like to peel back the onion a bit. Let's move on to some other comments. I'm so glad you guys liked the two women talking. Again, I adore Song, and I'm really glad you guys like her too. And there's a shining example where, I tried to do dialogues with other people in the past, and it just went to shit. And I don't know if it was because we separated the discussions from any kind of tag, whether we're just talking about the phenomenon and using examples. And, so we're like, let's talk about the Mary Sue instead of, is Ray a Mary Sue? And then let's talk about the femme fatale and not, let's focus on a particular thing, right? Maybe that's what did it. I don't know, but I do give credit to Song a lot. She expresses herself really well, and thank you guys for being patient with the audio issues on that one. It really pissed off both of us. It's like, shit. But we will be more aware that noise on the line is actually noise in the recording. We weren't sure that time. But yeah, we both went on a comment that said, they didn't say, it was just when she started hating on Cobain. That's it. Who was hating on Kurt Cobain? She said grunge wasn't her thing. I talked about, a period of time. I still remember the lyrics to Smells Like Teen Spirit. I knew the lyrics to Smells Like Teen Spirit. I was not that Weird Al song, right? Like, Nirvana was one of the formative bands of my adolescence, so I have no idea where the hell people got on hating on Kurt Cobain. It was, I don't know where they were going, but we were both like, huh? And we came to that independently. I actually sat there blinking at my screen, stunned. Like, I clearly have a different definition of hate than some other people do. So I just thought that was funny that both of us twigged to the same one there. And so this is where we get into my obsession with consistency. And one commenter said, at the end, I get that consistency for sure. Imagine if you had a job that wouldn't allow you to remain consistent to your core values. That would drive you bananas for sure. Imagine conditioning yourself to keep tolerating it. Imagine doing that for a couple decades. That would be a big old fat pile of shame. I don't have to imagine that, commenter. I know exactly what you're talking about. There's an episode of It's Not Therapy on toxic workplaces. Check it out. Because, yeah, a job shouldn't do that. A job shouldn't require that. But so many of us have them, right? So I just wanted to talk about that because I think it's very important. I ask people to talk about the shame, right? And so we're talking about it. I was very careful in selecting the comments for this one because it is sensitive, and I wouldn't want, this is so sensitive that the slightest sort of vocal intonation may set someone off here because we're dealing with shame, right? And so I'm really careful. I kind of picked more theoretical ones. That doesn't mean I didn't think the other comments were good. I'm being very careful here. I will end with one that had a whole list of it that I thought, all right, good place to end. But so this framing of the culture war as a form of shame versus shame is actually quite good. Got quite a few of those. Yay. As a theory, it explains much of the happenings that we all observe and would be quite useful for broader cultural analysis. Not that I think either side is capable yet of viewing this for what it is, especially because it would require acknowledging the good messaging that the opposition has been doing, and we know that can't happen. As a contribution to analyzing shame and getting over it, I personally found it helpful to identify the source of the shame, hard to do, in brackets, and ask, why is this shameful? Oftentimes, the reason is not one of social good or some such, but because this is a method of controlling you. And once you see that the shame is only there to control you, you can choose to reject that control, also hard. Not endorsing any kind of nihilistic IDGAF mentality, but rather, I see what you're trying to do and I reject your reasoning. Actually telling people that to their face will get the most amusing reactions, as you've effectively called them out and declared that line of argument invalid. But it also invites a conversation in a way that IDGAF doesn't. Now, some of you may have seen me on Twitter doing exactly that to TERFs. Or as some people say, TER. They just call it trans-exclusive radical. It's like, oh, okay, that's pretty good. But yeah, and I actually had to explain what I was doing to a couple people because they didn't see the whole thing. I got dogpiled by J.K. Rowling stans, and I don't even think they're fans of hers. I think they're just using her as something as a useful idiot to push an agenda that they share. It's amazing how many Harry Potter references they miss. Maybe they're a Robert Galbraith fan. For people who don't know, Robert Galbraith is her crime novel pseudonym. Some anti-trans advocates insisted that was not a man's name. There are women named Robert. I have known one woman named Robert my entire life. These are gender essentialists running upstream because it is very interesting when you recognize the control tactic. You are not controlled by it, and you start firing back in... okay, I'm going to take myself out of this. I'm just going to look at your viewpoint and examine it. Hello, Midna. They don't take it well, as the commenter said. So this week, living proof, it was enjoyable. And it wasn't enjoyable in that, oh, wow, I really get my kicks dealing with very angry people. I don't. It just, there are certain things I believe you have to step up on because I do think a huge, and all sides are doing it in the whole transgender debate, is they're using shame tactics to shut people up. And if you want to get me in your face, do that. It's not a question of what side they're coming from, because I said all sides do it. And I fought with all sides when I see them doing it, because I saw them doing it to actual trans women who tried to engage with them. And then they said awful things. And then they tried to say, I'm sorry if I was harsh. You have clearly been through a lot of pain in your life. And I'm just like, oh, fucking blow me with a part I don't actually have. You know, that's one of those times. Okay, could I have that part just so those people could blow me? Like, just fucking, what insincere nonsense, right? And I do think a lot of people don't see the seams of the shame tactic because they are so deep in it, because shame absolutely controls. And that's why I don't use a definition of shame, that shame is something you're supposed to move out of, because shame is designed to keep you down. And that's why I separate guilt and shame. Like I said, not super quibbly, just explaining why I use the terms I do. It's not a right or wrong, it's why they're functional for me. Moving on. Good comment. The funny thing about the trope of the slob husband and the gorgeous wife, this is from two women talking, is that it's never psychologically affected men. Men know where they stand physically when it comes to how women view them. So even we didn't like it, believe in it, it's fun entertainment because it isn't real. But we always knew it was fantasy, because deep down, every man wants to look like Giga Chad and have "Can You Feel My Heart" blasting in their heads as they walk around. That was really interesting to me, because don't forget, I worked in television. And the television industry is an industry of slob guys. Look at how Harvey Weinstein presented, okay? Slob guys with really hot trophy wives, girlfriends, and or both. Often both, you know. And I don't know if that was them emulating the sitcom stuff because they can't detach the way this commenter did, and went, that's not real, right? Because they're narcissists. Or whether that's TV executives trying to insist or trying to almost rub their nose because they're narcissists in middle-class guys, like, hey, this is the life, whatever. I don't know. But I just thought that was a really interesting perspective, that no, we know it's not real. We understand reality. And it didn't sound like this person was saying that, well, I don't know. I don't know what it meant, so I'm not going to extrapolate. But interesting. And the next comment is from the same guy. Oh, Leanna, I gotta give you credit on something that just explained why I like Batman so much and why I personally think Batman alone is better than all of Marvel and DC. Batman isn't defined by the woman he loves. Bruce is defined by the mission he's chose to take up. Women are secondary, maybe even tertiary to him. His goal is to be the dark guardian of the most actually cursed, crime-ridden city in the world. That's something most people would never take up, especially because it's literally impossible. In fact, people keep telling Bruce that it's pointless, but he doesn't care. It's truly inspiring to me. He's a man that's chosen to carry an impossible load until his death because no one else will or can. And this is maybe why I don't get Batman that way. Obviously, I like Batman. I got a Batman Beyond back there. Batman Beyond's fucking cool. But I started reading comics slightly pre-Crisis. And Batman in Earth 2 was married to Catwoman then. So that Batman and modern Batman are not the same character. So, again, different perspective. I'm sitting here going, huh? Really? Because I mean, the whole Batman Catwoman thing, I personally think that shoehorning that relationship in as a romance thing in the Matt Reeves, Robert Pattinson Batman film was one of the weaknesses of it. I wish they'd just been a team up and let that happen in the second film. Because, you know, if this is the interpretation, this adds weight to why I'm like, I'm not buying this. I'm finding it's kind of cheapening both of them to force that. But yeah, interesting stuff. Yeah. And then another commenter, there's two more. A weird side thought regarding the tropes that pleasuring a man has to be depicted as coerced or with an ulterior motive is that the sex-positive feminist response to justify things like lingerie and burlesque and other expressions of sexuality the sex-negative radicals saw as complicit with oppression was, it's empowering. Men never have to justify expressions of sexuality by claiming to feel empowered by it. And I'm like, cool. Accurate. I don't know. Like, and that's that whole, we're coming at all of this from society didn't just go and appear one day. We have a lot of historical baggage. And of course, is that whole women don't really like sex. They just put up with it, period. And I think that's tied in that. But it's a really solid observation that, granted, what is the equivalent of lingerie for guys? I can't say I know. Because, yeah, you can get nice underwear, but it's sort of not, it's not a thing. What's the equivalent of lingerie for guys? Guys, let me know. Maybe there isn't one. That's a valid answer. So here's the final comment. Like I said, I talk about shame, and this commenter went deep. Men are literally shamed for every human behavior and then shamed for reacting to being shamed. If a man is angry, shamed for displaying toxic masculinity. If a man is sad, shamed for displaying fragile masculinity. If a man shows no emotion, toxic masculinity again. If a man works hard to succeed in his career, he is shamed for keeping women and children out of positions of power, for exerting his toxic masculinity to be a provider. He obviously just wants a woman he can control and financially abuse. If a man has no career ambitions, he's shamed for being a man-child who just wants a woman to be a mother to him and is entitled to her emotional labor. Man wants some downtime, peace and quiet, or a male-only space. No. The only thing that comes from male-only spaces, even for just one man, is toxic masculinity and misogyny. If a man cheats on a partner, he's a scumbag, flame to no end. If a man's partner cheats on him, he must have been so negligent to push them to have an affair, flame him to no end. See also, men who speak out about being abused. It must have been his fault. He must have been so abusive to cause her to lash out like that. Men who speak out about the inequities they face. Obviously, incel, misogynist man children. The list goes on and on. It's very hard, if not impossible, to let go of shame when it's hoisted upon you from every angle for your entire life. And that is completely real and valid. And I picked that comment because I was like, yeah, there's another side to every single one of those coins. And this is the messed up thing about the fucked up gender binary that we live in. Women get shamed for every one of those things too. Yes, we do, on the opposite end of the coin. And this is why I started doing men's content, because you cannot get a complete picture of what's going on if you only deal with women or you only deal with men. And we are forced to specialize in a way that's artificial. Because, okay, if a man's angry, shame for displaying toxic masculinity. If a woman's angry, then she's crazy. You're out of control. You're hysterical, right? If a woman is sad, oh, buck up. Don't cry. Nobody likes to see smile, right? That's why the smile more hits so hard. That's why it's a thing. And this is not to negate this commenter. This is to share. This is to say everything you're saying is exactly right. I'm showing you the other side of the coin because of the way these dichotomies work. Did you hear me? Everything you're saying is exactly right. Quote me. If a man shows no emotion, if a woman shows no emotion, there's something wrong with her. She's cold. She's frigid. Right? Apologies to the one viewer I know who doesn't like that word, but it's the right word there. If a man works hard to succeed in his career, if a woman works hard to succeed in her career, well, it's artificial. She's neglecting her family. She can't be happy. You're a tryhard. Like, there is shame, trust me, when a woman focuses on her career. You are treated as selfish. I've actually been told you're selfish for not having kids because you'd be a good mother. That's not totally up to me. I have a bunch of health conditions that... Selfish? What? But it happens, right? And that was performative. I don't get that upset about it anymore. For the trolls out there, you know, who are trying to go after Nerdette, no, this shit doesn't actually bother me. Assholes, moving on. You know, if a man has no career ambitions, if a woman has no career ambitions, she's setting women back. Shame, right? Man wants some downtime. Ooh. Women get the same thing. Again, not saying you're wrong. Just other side of the coin. You're right. You're absolutely right. Other side of the coin. There is this shame. I see it in female family members. If they sit down and do something for them, oh, you know, if there's one dish in the sink or one piece of laundry to be folded or any work that needs to be done, they will not sit down even if they are exhausted. You know, it's stupid. And I rejected that. I'm a gamer. Of course I did. It's like, screw it. This afternoon is a RimWorld afternoon. Suck it. Housework. You can wait. Right? But that's, oh, you're lazy. Oh, you're not, you know. See, you could have kids. You have the time. So, you know, I'm just sharing in the frustration here, right? And then the cheating. If a man cheats, oh, you couldn't keep your man. If a woman cheats, oh, you're a slut. Right? There is no Greek chorus in unison sending messages. There are mixed messages for everybody, right? Men who speak out about being abused, it must have been his fault. Women who speak out about being abused, you're just lying to ruin his life, right? Again, the male commenter, 100% right, but there's another side of the coin, right? And then men who speak out about the inequities they face, feminazi. If it's a woman, oh, you're radical, you're a man hater, all that stuff. Now, I say this as someone who's called a femcel by Hassan Piker, trying to brand me a racist over Mortal Kombat 11, the Jax ending in Mortal Kombat 11. And I mean, I had the last laugh because it's basically the theory of the end of the Disney Plus Loki show when they introduce, you know, He Who Remains. That was sweet. That was the only part of that show after the first 2 episodes that I actually... Well, no. There were a lot of parts of the show. It was the only thing heavily featuring Sylvie on that show that I enjoyed. That scene. But anyway, that's a tangent. But like, I get when there are words that just have charges like that, and the fact that he had to say femcel indicates incel is inherently male, right? And the ridiculousness of him, and people didn't get why I said, you know, he's going after my sexual activity and my sexual desirability. No, that's not what femcel means. Well, what does it mean? They can't define it. Because that's what it means. They just don't want to admit that Mr. Progressive Himbo was actually pretty fucking sexist right there. Again, performative anger. I find it funny now. Again, because I got the last laugh. And the list goes on and on and on. And this is what does legitimately frustrate me about this whole thing. That for every feminist complaint or for every manosphere complaint, there is an equal and opposite complaint from the other side, which is also valid. And instead of going the way I do with my social circles and professional circles, okay, I'll give you that one. Give me this one. Okay. That's the way it should work. But instead, it's like the entire position is not valid, as the one commenter said, if the opposition has a single point. This isn't something feminists did to men or predators did to women. This is something that was done to all of us many, 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 many years ago. And now it's just crab in the bucket shit. We are all drenched in so much shame that every time somebody tries to climb out, nope, 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 crab in the bucket, pulling them down. And I'm done with that. And that's why I appreciate this community. And even when you get pissed at me, I appreciate you because you come back. You know, some of you claim you ain't gonna, but then you're back. I remember you. I remember you. You're gluttons for punishment, right? But I do think there's something to this shame thing. So, where does this go? What kind of content do you want to see on this? Do you want to see more kind of analysis of fictional characters for the purposes of this? Do you want to see more just direct sort of... I mean, I find the best reactions happen when I deal with a topic instead of a piece of media. Like I said, talk about Mary Sue. Don't talk about Rey from Star Wars. Right? But let me know. Let me know what you're looking for. I live to serve here. Okay, help support this channel. Become a monthly patron, patreon.com/LeannaK, or buy a one-time Leanna Care session for someone who can use it but can't afford it, coffee.com/LeannaK. Thanks for watching and have a great weekend if you get one.